Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of eCommerce Mastery. I'm your host, Ben Gothard, and today we have on the show the gentleman that started an entire branch of internet marketing. This gentleman changed the way that people sell online. He's the creator of the video sales letter, the VSL. He is a gentleman who has profoundly influenced the world of copywriting, of email sending, of selling online in ways that influences about $14 billion of transactions, of revenues, and of sales every single year. So without further ado, it is an honor to introduce the man, the legend, Mr. Jon Benson. How you doing today, Jon?
Hey, I'm doing good. That's pretty awesome, man. Thanks. Doing good. How's it going over there?
Oh, it's fantastic. And I'm so excited for this show today, man. This is going to be amazing. So
Yeah.
for everybody who's watching and listening, I'm going to break down what you can expect from this episode. One, we're going to hear Jon's story. It's going to blow you away. Two, we're going to dive into the philosophy of selling $14 billion a year of product, and we're going to break it down into copywriting, VSLs, and email. And then you're going to be able to go out and implement and crush it. So, Jon, I would love to hear your story.
You mean how I got into this crazy business, or is that the story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, I started to have with no aspirations to be a copywriter at all. I just was a fitness guy, and I was into bodybuilding, martial arts all throughout college, and played sports and all that stuff. And then got out of college, got really fat. In fact, I became obese. And decided in my 30s I better not be obese anymore after I had a massive heart attack. So at a young age, I don't know how old you are, but it was probably around your age. So, I mean, yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
So
I'm about 25. That'd be a pretty big wake-up call.
25, are you 25?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I thought you might be about almost close to 30. Nothing personal, man, but it's the facial hair.
I got a
But
baby face.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's scary, man. It's scary when you have a heart attack at 38. But so I decided, okay, I better take this more seriously, and got back into things, and decided to write a book called Fit Over 40, and had no idea what I was going to do with it. I met a guy online who was very big into internet marketing, which I literally didn't know what the term meant. So this is, people are talking about novices. I mean, I was literally 40 years old, about to turn 40, and and not knowing at all what internet marketing was. So I've yet to hear a story that was worse as far as like getting into something. But so Tom took pity on me, I guess, and said, "Hey, I think it's a great book. I'll market it, and I'll do all the copywriting, which I'd never even heard of, except for copywriting, something you do at the patent office." And Tom did that, and I remember getting the first letter back, and it was like, I don't know who this guy is. I'd like to meet him though. Never seen direct response copywriting before. So he was joking, saying, "You're going to walk away from your business, which I'd built for 14 years." And I'm like, "There's no way." And the second day I walked away from my business. So I never looked back.
That's amazing.
Complete about face. And yeah, the book went on to be real successful. Then my next book, I didn't have Tom's help. So I had to figure out copywriting, and that was a disaster. And the next book, Every Other Day Diet, was the book I wrote the first video sales letter for. It was a compilation of ideas I'd gotten from various people, and just kind of put them together with my own flair and touch. And that just ended up being wildly successful. And next thing you know, we're doing $1 million a week in media. And it was just, a massive uptick in surge and stuff. And quite accidental, I got into being a copywriter. And at first I was just doing VSLs for people because I'd started it. So I knew I could do it for other people. And the next one was Truth About Abs. And that's still running today. That was 13 years ago, I guess. But so it's kind of crazy that it started that way. Went to Pimsleur from there, and went to all these different like companies that people know now that didn't exist really. I mean, they did, but they didn't exist at this level. And yeah, I just said I would just transfer, kind of get out of the fitness world for a while as far as business wise, and maintain that because I had a large list and following, but have somebody else maintain that while I go into this copywriting thing and see what I can do with it. next thing you know, it's the people don't even know me as a fitness guy anymore from a marketer point of view. They maybe from a personal point of view, but not from a marketer point of view. And so now I'm known as a copywriter, a guy that created software and all that stuff. So kind of weird. But so yeah, multiple careers, just in a fail swoop, and none of them planned. So that's how I got started.
So for the history books, and for
Yeah.
everybody who's watching and listening, I hope y'all recognize that you're literally hearing from a living legend right now. So please make sure to get that wax out of your ears and listen.
Yeah.
For the history books, when you decided to do that first VSL, what was the impetus for that? What was the catalyst? How did you go from this thing doesn't exist to, I'm going to do this thing?
It's a story I've told from day one, because I don't like when I see people I've gotten ripped off thousands of times, as you can imagine. And some people will say, oh, I got this from Jon or whatever. Like Ryan Dice, he famously did it. He made a testimonial saying, I just blatantly ripped him off. He's the godfather of the VSL. I literally stole everything. And, so you got guys like that, but then you got a lot of other guys that don't do that. And I never wanted to be the guy that didn't do that. And so when I called up my friend Mike Geary at the time, he was big in the fitness world, and said, I can't get this page to convert. And he said, you should, I forget the guy's name, to be honest with you. It's been so long ago. He goes, there's some guy I saw that did a PowerPoint presentation. And I said, PowerPoint presentation. And I found it, and it looked exactly like a PowerPoint. Yeah, I mean, complete with the ugly green gradient backgrounds and bullet points. And I'm like, that's a terrible application to maybe it's a good idea. But then I took because I came from the advertising world, so I owned an ad agency. So I took my ad agency skills and said, well, we know red, black, and white works. So we know those are the colors that trigger. I know that bigger fonts work. I know that what if and then it was just kind of breaking down, like, how would I change this? And that became the ugly VSL when I started saying, well, I would use the red words as NLP. I would highlight the words I want them to notice, and I would actually do it over slides. So like you might not know it, but over 20 slides, you just read a message that said, buy this now, good feeling, So, I'm like, okay, I'm just applying all the tricks I know in advertising. And it just worked. And people had a hard time replicating exactly the cadence and the style of it. And then I don't sound like it here lately, because I've got this is losing my voice, but I did a lot of voiceover work earlier on, just in DJ stuff and monster truck rally, but which I can't even do that now. Well, that's kind of weird, but so I had the voice for it, and I thought, well, okay, I'll read it like an actor would read or something, and then it just kind of the whole thing clicked, and so that was the impetus. It was Mike Geary, really, and so then he said, here's 25 grand to write mine. I was thinking I could do this in a day. I thought, this is really, I never thought to ask for, because I didn't even know about residuals. I had no idea. And so if I had residuals on that thing, man, it'd be awesome. But yeah, so it took me at least 2 or 3 years to even get the hang of, doing that as a business. And yeah, it was just something I found I couldn't write letters, but I could write VSLs. And then I started figuring out, well, why is it working? And then when I did that, I wrote my first successful letter, which was Old School New Body. That was the first letter I'd written. So it's letter, and I purposely did it as a letter, and yeah, it didn't work great. So that was my birth as a copywriter. That was the impetus to do it. So
that is incredible. So it seems like you took an idea, but the fledglings of an idea, and you took it to level 10. I mean, it was at level like 0.02, and you took it to level 10, mixed in some psychology, some neurolinguistic programming, plus the Sunday voiceover and monster truck voice, and bringing all that together with just so much alignment and fluidity with it that it just crushed. That's amazing. That's really
it was an idea that and again, I apologize if you're listening to this guy, but I don't remember the name of the guy. But I've said his name like 10 years ago on the interview, so I don't remember the guy's name. But so I think he had the right idea in a really, really wrong application. And then I thought, well, and then actually what makes the video sales letter work is the fact that I'm only showing you 15 words or 20 words at a time. So I'm forcing you to read all the copy versus reading all these bullet points and stuff. So, and then I create the hypnotic effect by going through these slides rapidly. So there is a hypnotic effect, as you know, to VSL. So I kind of combined all of which I'd studied. You know, I didn't study hypnosis technically, but I was familiar with Ericksonian hypnosis from college. But so I just kind of put it all together, and it just worked. I didn't think it was going to work, but it did work. And then over time, we just kept making it better. And I coded my programmer and I said, hey, I came up with this crazy idea, Ted. What if we have just a video on the screen and there's nothing else, and then at a certain point, all the buy buttons drop down. Now, I mean, we got entire platforms. And Wistia, the guys at Wistia said, we wouldn't have even existed if it wasn't for VSL. So that whole thing, we coded the original magic buy button. It's called the magic buy button. It's literally still called the magic buy button in places. And so I came up with that idea and coded it. Then I came up with the idea to remove the pause button. So you can't pause the video. That got us banned on Google. That's what caused all the turmoil on Google. But at first, for years, it was, well, not for years, probably for a year, it was just, yeah, you can't pause the video. You can't do it. You have to watch this video, and we were just forcing people to watch the videos, and we were getting insane conversions from it. So that's incredible. That's the nature of it.
So I love that. And thank you for sharing that backstory of how that all came about. I really want to dig into, and you talked about it a little bit, but more of the philosophy of how you really approach these three different tools of copywriting, VSLs, and email. So let's start with copywriting, because that is the foundation of the other two. I would love to really break down your philosophy of how to effectively go about this thing called copywriting.
Well, I teach something now called the Now method, and Now stands for Notice One Want. So the philosophy that I carry in copy is it's not just a command to notice one want, to look at the one greatest desire that your customer has and focus on not only that one want, but there's only one mechanism to get that want. So it's a solitary mechanism. It's not 9 steps to achieving wealth. It's the one key secret you must do to achieve wealth. So there's a big distinction between those two, right? One sounds hard. One sounds not just easier, but I can't do without it. So the copy I try to write is copy that you feel like you can't do without it, as opposed to that sounds intriguing. So it doesn't always come out that way, but we try. But when we notice the one want, the one major want that the customer has, and distinguish that from the need. For example, I do a lot of stuff in weight loss, obviously. And so you would think the want is to lose weight, but that's not the want. That's the need. The want is to look sexy in my clothes, look good naked. Those are the things. So, I mean, you sell the wants, okay? And you notice the one want. Notice the one biggest want that people have, and you focus on that one want. If you want to permanently banish thigh fat from your body forever, okay, so I'm just taking one as an example. Well, what have I done there? I've gone from weight loss, which clearly this is a weight loss offer, but it doesn't sound like one. It could be a cream. It could be something, even though those don't work, but it could be something like that, supplement. But that's the one want that women over 40 have. They really have an issue with that. So I key on that one want, and then I can say, there's one thing you got to do to it. You have to balance your insulin levels. And then I go into, well, here's why high insulin causes this and blah, blah, blah. So the best way to do that is to follow a low carb diet. Well, all I've done is a circuitous route to get to a low carb diet, right? That's all I've done. But I've done it with one. So it's like, oh, I can latch onto one thing. So that's a big part of how I approach copywriting. The second part is I write to one person. So whenever I'm talking on a webinar, whenever I'm writing a VSL, you can read that as if I'm writing to one solitary human being. So if I write a sentence that doesn't sound like I'm talking to you, it's wrong. It's just a scratch it. There's sometimes you can break that in a webinar. Like you can say in a webinar, like, look, I'm not going to move forward until everyone on the call does X. I mean, so you can get by with that. But even then, I say maybe 1 or 2 of those statements in an entire webinar. The rest of it's like, you and I both know. I use that all the time. Look, you and I both know that, and every single person is thinking I'm talking to them, right? So it doesn't matter that no, I'm not. but they think their subconscious thinks this. So I use those kind of phrases all the time. And it's very important because the way that you cut through the crowd is you have personal conversations with people. So I can take an email going out to 300,000 people and make it feel personal. And that's what you have to do as a copywriter today, I think. If you're a direct response copywriter, and even if you're not, I just read a web page by, I'm interviewing sales teams, right? And I just complimented the guy. I said, dude, you wrote your corporate sales page like a DR, like a direct response letter. And it was like complete with a story, complete with this, and you didn't expect that, right? It's like, okay, that's really cool. But it was written as a story to say, here's why I believe you can relate to me. Again, it's talking to one person. So that's a huge thing. So the note is one, talk to one person. Again, you're hearing ones a lot, right? Hearing ones a lot. And the last thing that I emphasize in there is the ability to maintain attention. So it's one thing to get attention. It's another thing to maintain it. So look at it as like, you're picking up a girl in a bar, you're meeting, I'll phrase that in a more politically correct way. You're picking up a girl in a bar. It's one thing to get her attention by flirting with her, by doing all the PUA things that guys do. And it's another thing to maintain it. So I like the terms commanding attention or maintaining attention. And if you can maintain the attention by curiosity questions, by lead drops, by open loops, by stories, that is persuasion. And I take it from a dating perspective, even though I've only written a few letters in that space. It's not my space, but I understand the psychology well enough to have written them successfully. That it's the same psychology to sales. It's like you're not just grabbing attention. That's what everyone's trying to do. It's like, here's my Ferrari, right? Oh, look at my 10 Ferraris. You got their attention for maybe 10 seconds. After that, it's like, okay, so what? The guy's got 10 Ferraris. Who cares? So you have to maintain the attention. It
has to be more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you do that through all those kind of techniques that we're talking about. So that's my general approach to copywriting. One last thing I can say is I write almost everything very, very quickly. There's two different approaches that I've seen, generally speaking. One is the Gary Halbert approach and my approach. One is the Gary Benzavenga approach. I think Gary Benzavenga is one of the greatest living copywriters in history. And he would take 4 months to write a letter. I write a letter in 4 hours. So it's like,
why?
It's a totally different approach. Because I teach this process where it's like, I'm not writing from myself, I'm writing from a character. So I channel into a character, and that frees me from any sort of like normal limitations of what I might say. I don't censor myself. I don't try to edit things. I don't do any of that stuff. And I go back, I'll spend a day editing it or whatever, but the letter's written and I don't overthink it. So some people, there's probably advantages to overthinking it, but I find it much easier and much better to do that because it allows, it has I grew up as a musician, as you can see back there, and I still play professionally, but I did play professionally and I still play, but, my first degree was in jazz performance. So, if you think about jazz performance and you memorize John Coltrane licks on the bass and you just start playing John Coltrane licks or whatever, but it can sound cool at first, but there's no musicality to it necessarily, even if you're playing it in a musical way. But if you're just saying, I'm just going to improvise something and I'm in the zone, and when you're in the zone, stuff that you would never normally say comes out on the instrument. I mean, so I smoked dope one time in my life. I'm not a drug guy. I've done mind expansion stuff for sure, but I've never done recreational drugs ever. And just have no interest in it. I just don't drink a lot. I don't drink at all right now. But so finally my ex-wife said, try the marijuana thing. And I was gigging, right? So I was sitting down with the bass, and an hour later, I'm like, holy now I totally get why people do this, because I'm playing stuff like I didn't even know that my fingers would do that. And then 30 minutes later, I felt like the whole world was out to get me and I'll never do this again. So I was like, it wasn't worth the price, right? But the point is that you can take yourself naturally into a state where if you get yourself into a flow state, you can write like that, and it can come out in ways that you normally wouldn't think. So I've written some of the best I've ever written in hours versus months.
Have you tested where you sit down for that 4 hours and you just write and you channel it and it's raw and taking that without editing versus when you go back and spend that next day editing it and tested the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the
The
results.
most famous test of that was Old School New Body. The letter I wrote that did, I don't know, 20 million, I guess, on ClickBank. But and I co-owned that product with a couple of friends of mine. But that whole letter was written, there was an intro page and a full sales letter, and the whole thing was written in a day. And I never edited it. I didn't even spell check it. It was never edited. We went back later and edited it, and the conversions decreased. So I don't know if it's because I use just one of those weird magical moments or whatever. I'm not saying every letter I write does that, because it doesn't. But yeah, that's my one test, my one split test of that. So yeah, and I go back and I read that letter today, and I see places that I would definitely edit it. It was too verbose here. That wasn't clear enough here. But there's some energy that you capture. And again, it's like, I mean, I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in the punk music scene. I wanted to be, I grew up in an old Aerosmith, which is basically punk, right? Basically punk meets blues, but, and, Ramones and Sex Pistols and stuff like that. And that stuff is all based on energy, man. I mean, it's all based on feel. There's not a lot of chops there. It's all feel. And the same thing is true of copy. Copy has a rhythm to it. Carlton and I talk about this all the time because he's a musician as well. And he's just a fantastic copywriter. And to get the rhythm of copy, I just don't think you should practice that. I think it comes out. It's more raw. And for me, when it feels more raw, it feels more real. So maybe that's why people respond to it.
I think you're absolutely right, because that, like, what you're tapping into and what you're channeling, experiencing that on the other side is that's two sides of the same coin. I mean, they're going on that journey with you. That's brilliant. So just to recap quickly, and then we'll move on to the second column here. We're focusing on this idea of one want with one solution, and that really allows people to grasp it, and they get it. And they don't have to think about, what was number 5 or 6. They can just focus on this one thing and attach to it. And okay, got it. Then we are just truly tapping into this feel of maintaining attention, and of not only capturing, but really maintaining that attention throughout the entire experience. That's really brilliant. Perfect. So that is our first pillar there. Let's move on. Now that we've talked about the philosophy and principles of copywriting, let's move into the VSL. And I know that it's foundational, so it's building on top of one another. But yeah, let's approach VSLs now.
Sure. So VSLs, I mean, the software we've created for it makes it about as easy as it's ever going to get for people. We've had literally over $1 billion a year produced by the software. So it's very high quality, and all the copy I wrote. So it's like, it's pick and play, but and then people add their own stuff to it, of course. But the structure is really pretty solid. Like there's a 5-step process to it, and so VSLs should always start with some sort of an open loop / pattern interrupt. So, because you only have a few seconds to grab attention, and there's multiple different ways to do that. I mean, there's the classic way, which is hi, I'm John, and this is my magic jacket. Hi, my name is Josh, and this is the fish. I mean, you've heard all these. These are all came right out of, I wrote these with other people, but those work, and those still work. Right? It's still to this very day. But there's other forms of interrupts that work. So there's a 3-question interrupt. There's a reverse interrupt. There's all these different things that we talk about. So, but gathering, again, you're getting the attention first, right? So you work on just grabbing the attention, and from there you go immediately into why that attention is going to give them benefit. So the attention has to be immediately relevant to something that they want. So I've heard people go, "Oh, this is Ben, and these are my magic headphones. My mom gave me these headphones when I was 12. I mean, you're gone at that point. You're gone at the mom. My mom gave me the headphones at 12. And those would be, pretty bad headphones, I'm sure. But the point is that if it's not relevant immediately to why that matters to them, it's not going to work. So after you get past the hurdles of the very first one, that's when you start working on opening loops. You start working on building connection. So the very next parts of that, after you get to the benefits, is like, why should you listen to me? And I call it the vital connection, because it's super important that you build rapport, and you do it in a way that's in a way that's modest. So you don't do the 9 Ferraris thing. You do, if you do, you can say, listen, I wasn't always a guy that could drive 9 Ferraris. I mean, that's just freaking crazy to me. In fact, I think it's insane. I probably got overboard. I used to barely be able to drive a Pinto. And so I could say that 9 Ferraris thing and then go pivot immediately into the Pinto story, or whatever the crappy car is today. I still use Pintos, but yeah, legend is just, by the way, legend is a euphemism for old. So, but so Pintos, they used to blow out. I remember that as a kid. But so yeah, you go into the connection. Why? How deeply can you connect via rapport mechanisms to the prospect? And this is what requires you to be vulnerable, to tell a story that's intriguing. Yes, there's a lot of stories, like a nightmare stories, though I've written a lot of them, where the nightmare stories are, compilations of things. There's some truth to it, there's some fiction to it, but you're not selling something so you can get a little bit. It's kind of like Hollywood taking 2 historical characters and combining them as one, or 2 book characters and combining them as one. It's the same basic thing. So you tell a story that's captivating. You tell a story that really draws somebody in, and the more raw and intimate you can be, the better. And then you transition out of that as a reason why I went through this hell so I could bring you the solution. I swore I would tell the world all about this if I ever survived this hell that I went through. And that's what you're here to do today. And before I tell you what it is, and just go right into another open loop, I need to tell you that the biggest problem that you face is not what you think it is. So again, it's a one problem, but I can say, listen, you got multiple problems that comes to weight loss. You have insulin resistance, you have calorie control, you have food choices, I can go down the line with a million things, right? But the number one problem, and see, again, it's the same thing. So I mentioned the other problems, and if you overcome this number one problem, all the other ones take care of themselves. So I call it the big problem. It's the big problem. And you got to, and for me, I coined the big problem. So I'll say, there's a term I use called insulin mismanagement, for example. So I'll come up with a coin term and say, that's when and I'll combine all the other problems together to make that problem. That's why when you have a combination of high carb foods, too many calories, too little exercise, to this, all creates this one massive problem. So I'm basically saying the same thing, but they only have to think about one thing versus 4 or 5. And then you transition into the bigger solution. That's step 4, which is the problem's big, but the solution's bigger. And this is where you can get into tips, where you can say, okay, there's 3 things you can do to overcome this. And you do the first 2, and you go, okay, now I'm gonna give you the third. And they're tips, they're very vague, they're incomplete. I'm gonna give you the third, but just know that without doing the third, the other 2 you can pretty much forget about. So the third, again, it's coming down to the one thing. And the third is something to do with another branded term, like we call these primary solutions. So I call this, look, the solution to all these problems is something I call caloric staggering. So that will solve the problem.
What's that?
Exactly. What's that? And I actually created a system around caloric staggering to make it super easy for you, so you don't have to think about this. And so all of a sudden you're into the pitch, and that's the final part of that, and that's the grand offering.
That's amazing.
So that's the structure of the VSL, essentially.
So we are doing a pattern interrupt. We're capturing their attention. We're immediately then going into the benefits of, this is what you'll get from maintaining this level of attention. Then we're proving that we are the person that they should be listening to. But we're not going at it from the 9 Ferraris approach. We might want to try 6 Ferraris, or
right.
A little bit more modest than that. And then we're following it. We're following the same principles of copywriting, of focusing on the one most important thing, speaking one-on-one to the individual, and then we're bringing them through. We're identifying a problem, then we're giving them some solutions, and then the most important thing that we're highlighting on the solution is this branded term of something like caloric staggering, and then that opens up the door to then we can then go into our solution of the pitch, and
Right.
it's very natural. It flows. That's super powerful.
Yeah. And
Perfect.
the pitch is mechanical. The pitch is our slides in pitch. There's probably 40 of them. I mean, there's 40 different segments of a pitch. It's all just broken into like just it's just formulaic. But the formula's been really well tested.
That's incredible. So let's move into this last column here of email. And I'm really, really fascinated and excited to talk about, fascinated by and excited to talk about email, because I know you've been putting in a lot of effort into email lately.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm really interested in seeing like what is the cutting edge of email and really making it work for us, because it's a huge channel, completely viable. There's no question about that. Email's never going away. So let's dive into it.
It's not going anywhere. I mean, not for a long time. I mean, email still has a, spend $1, make 42 ROI. I mean, it's an insane ROI. The email, I mean, CopyPro was really written, it was originally called Email CopyPro. So our original focus was just nothing but email. So the idea was to say, okay, we'll come out with software that has the best email campaigns that were written, donated by friends of mine. So, Ryan Dice, Ryan Levesque, the line of people that donated, Frank Kern, that donated stuff and said, hey, you can templatize this and put it into the system. And we built this massive library of the greatest marketers in the world and all their campaigns, their win-back campaigns, their exit card campaigns, their promotionals, their whatever webinar. And then that expanded to just CopyPro, because we became the software grew to where it could handle sales pages and web pages and ads and social, everything that you would possibly need. Opt-in pages would, that would rewrite themselves, so you could do multiple different tests. And so that's what CopyPro focuses on. But it's still, I think, as people use CopyPro for a million different things, but email is still the crux of the tool. Not that there's not, in fact, we've got, I would say that we've got super strong email libraries. There's no doubt about that. We have, Ryan gave us the entire machine library sequence to put in CopyPro. So that's like $10,000. You can't buy it unless you do their $10,000 program. And so just imagine, having that level of at a fingertip, so that you could say, I can use the machine email sequences to produce a dog training promotion. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be, he wrote it for internet marketing, but we use it for everything, because the machine adapts and the machine changes and it just keeps the formula. So that's kind of cool. But the process behind email is still the same. I mean, I still believe the same things I believed about email 10 years ago, that, people aren't personable enough. They don't send nearly enough email, especially after a promotion, like after a webinar. I mean, so how many emails do you think that you should send after a webinar?
As many as it takes.
Yeah, but what's a number that you think most people would say, here's how many I would send that people that didn't buy?
Probably like 3 to 5.
Yeah. You know what the number is? 27.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So people are radically underestimating it. And you separate those into different segments. So you got people that watch the webinar all the way to the pitch. Well, they need a different email sequence than the people that watch the webinar, all the way through, versus the people that signed up and never made it, or watched 5 minutes and bolted. Those are 3 different psychological sets that you have to, if you want the most sales, that you segregate out, which is why we're getting 11x, like when we get 10 sales on the webinar, we've gotten up to 110 sales total after with just email. So I mean, like, you can't really make the argument that it doesn't, I don't know who makes the argument that email doesn't work anymore, but those sequences are worth their weight in gold. And so that's super important to understand the psychology of the sequences, and also just the copy. I mean, I think people get wrapped up in writing copy that feels comfortable for them. There's a fine line between copy that doesn't sound anything like you, which I don't advise, but copy we know is persuasive. Like, we know there are certain trigger words and phrases and things like that create more action than others. And to dismiss those and, go to milquetoast with it is never a good idea. So, so email is massive. Again, email should be one-on-one. Email should be written as one person. I like Andre Chevron's style of email a lot, as far as, you know, creating stories and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, there are guys that do this really, really well. But the most important thing is just frequency. I mean, it's like, it reminds me of going to the gym. I mean, it's like when people say, what's the most important thing about staying fit when you're over 40? I go, just consistency, man. I mean, I can go to, as long as I'm hitting the gym, and even twice a week, I'm going to be fine. But when I go in the gym twice a week, I'm outperforming guys that are in their 20s. I mean, because that's what I have to do. So, so you go hard, you go really, really hard, and you go home. So the same thing goes with email. Go really, really hard, and then, you know, go home. But I'd rather people do that than I'm afraid to say, oh gosh, I got 6 unsubscribes. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I want you to unsubscribe. So I have a totally different mindset. Like, if you're not getting value, I want you to unsubscribe because you're dead weight. I want to have a list. Our list is trim. For my fitness list is pretty big, but for the email marketing list, or for the internet marketing list rather, it's pretty trim. I mean, like, we might have 100,000, whatever it is, 160,000 people in there, and then we mail to 18,000. So, but there are 18,000 people that don't unsubscribe and don't, you know, they're interested in, you know, and they're cool with getting, you know, I don't send an offer every day or anything like that, but they're cool with getting an offer a week if I believe in it, or offer every 2 weeks, but definitely getting email. And then after my offers, they're going to get, they're going to get a lot. So, yeah, they're cool with that. So frequency is important.
So it seems like we can take the principles and the philosophies of the first two and bring that over into email, and then keep in mind the number one factor within email, which is frequency. And then we have a recipe for success. My question is here, there is a big push on messenger marketing. Mm-hmm. Have you experimented with, and I know we're kind of moving into a whole nother domain here, but have you experimented with Messenger as well and seen similar philosophies?
Sure, it's different. It's obviously you need to go much shorter. The dialogue spans have to be shorter. Bot stuff. And we have a bot course that Liana, she's our Facebook, my Facebook person on my team, and she created a course for bots and stuff. So yeah, we messed around with it. I've never gotten it to be nearly as effective as email, except for we did a before all these courses, before all the Facebook groups became super popular. My friend Caleb O'Dowd is a guy that started this years ago, and then, you know, people started mimicking it. And I know that God, what's the guy's name over? He's a friend of Joe Polish's. He did it and did it really, really well. And then of course Roland Frazier did a really, really killer group. Before he did his group, I did mine for the Now Method, and I was like, okay, we're gonna go, you know, cold traffic. But I ended up with like half cold and half people that knew me. So it was you know, because just people follow you, right? And we still ended up spending 4,000 and making 80,000. I mean, so it was like, I mean, how often would you do this, right? I mean, it's like, I don't know about you, but with Facebook, I never spent 4,000 and made 80,000, because it's like, I like suck at Facebook, man. And so we just blew this out of the water in every single one of our $4,000 10-person, you know, mastermind group. They were all no phone calls, no nothing, all Messenger. Sign up right here, do it now. And it was all, there was no box. It was just me typing, and my staff typing, and that's it. I mean, so it does work. I mean, I think, but it works in context if you're in that mode. So modal marketing is massively important to understand. So if you think of what most people are in the mode to do, there's a ton of people on social media, obviously. But when you go to Facebook, do you go there with the intention? Is your mode one to buy something?
Usually not.
Usually not, right? Amazon is completely different, right? It's like you go there with one intention. It's not to chat with people. LinkedIn is totally different. The mode is different. So when you go in there, the psychological mode is different. So to get a sale from Facebook, honestly, the guys doing it and doing it well, they should be really proud of themselves, because it's difficult to do. At least it has been for me. Now, granted, we knocked it out of the park this one time, but that's one time, right? And I know there are people that they have a killer funnel and all that stuff, and you know, and I get that, but maybe they've tapped into the mode thing better than I have. But email, you're right where you want to be, because emails coming into you're at the work, you're at the office, man. You are already in the mode of work, right? Chances are, if you have a company or you work for a company, you are buying or selling something, because all companies do. So the mode is there. So if you see a promotional email, it's perfect distraction. Like, oh God, I don't want to do these TPS reports. I'm going to click on this freaking video. And I'm going to watch it for an hour, like dog at a deer staring at a headlight, or a dog staring at a flashlight. But so yeah, it's like, so it's great distraction for people. You don't have that luxury as much as you do as you want to on Facebook. Plus, Facebook has become so totalitarian with how they, if you say something like, "This may help some people," it's like,
Banned.
oh God, claim. It's like, oh geez, it's just like, yeah, I give up. so yeah, getting that to work. Email, you don't have that worry. You can just say, so I like email a lot. I hear direct mail is really, really hot. Never done it, but I got friends of mine that swear by it.
So Jon, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I want to be very respectful of your time. And I do want to, in due fashion, give people the one call to action, the one biggest thing that we can focus on here, as far as implementation, and then and what we can do right now to skyrocket our e-com businesses.
Okay, sorry to make this into a pitch, because it is the truth. It doesn't matter if you're e-com or what. I mean, I see a lot of e-com guys that just don't understand the value of copy. They don't. I was on Amazon buying, one of those big exercise balls, because I want to. I'm doing this whole. My posture is getting really good now, and I want to keep it that way. So I'm buying one of these exercise balls, and I ended up buying the ball with a better copy. Not because I'm a copywriter, because it sold me, right? But the vast majority of ads on Shopify or Amazon or whatever are so poorly written that they just don't understand how to build a benefit stack, how to talk about things that people actually care about. Like, I don't give a shit that the ball is made of some plastic. I don't care. And to know that it's not, that put that last versus like, this is the most comfortable ball you will ever set on, that will not make your back feel like it's being, caught on the rack, So these are important things to understand for e-commerce guys. So I would take advantage of anything that's going to help your copy. And I will say this without a shred of hesitation. I have the two best programs in the world for copy, without a doubt. I mean, the two best in the world. And I say that sounding really like an arrogant. I don't mean it, because it's technically the truth. I've got the highest ranking revenue one, but because it's been the most tested, and it's such an eclectic version of copy. So you're not just getting software that does a lot of the copy for you. It does a lot of this heavy lifting for you. You're learning as you go, so that you can apply this to everything that you do. And I'm just a big believer in learning. I mean, it's great that you can push a button and get stuff, but I want to show people. So every single thing I do has got video teaching. Every little field in CopyPro has got a little video lesson if you want to watch it. You go, okay, here's why this is psychologically so important. If you don't do it. But I want to really educate people. So yeah, that would be my number one call to action, is do anything it takes to perfect or improve your sales copy, because the only thing that will happen is you'll get more sales. I mean, it's a very low risk, high reward proposition.
I literally cannot emphasize enough how true everything you just said is, especially about the importance of copy.
Yeah.
We all know that words are powerful. Emotions are what bring people to action. And for people with a business, for you with your own business, to have the opportunity to take a few inputs that you have and to stick that into software that will help polish it, shape it, and create this experience for your customers. I mean, that's like pressing the easy button. And when you're talking about ROI, and return on investment, building these core pieces of your offering, that's one of the highest returning investments that any of us as business owners, as e-com sellers can make. I mean, if I could glue my finger down on that easy button so I could press it all day long, every day, I would. It's that powerful. So I'm going to make sure and put the links in both the description below and the show notes so that you can click those, change your world, and join the upper echelon of sales conversion rates, the upper echelon of businesses that have extraordinary copy, because it will set you apart. It will set you apart and it will give you an advantage. Load the dice in your favor. Give yourself every advantage. This is one of those advantages that not enough people are taking advantage of. So be one of the people who are.
Totally.
Right on.
Best advice I can give anyone is, if you understand copy, you'll never go hungry.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So, Jon, I want to thank you again so much for coming on the show. It's truly an honor to be talking to you. You are a legend, and I'm not talking about the definition that was provided.
It's a tautology. You're an old legend, tautology. Okay.
Well, the history books of marketing will forever remember you, and are remembering you and honoring you now. And it really is an honor to be able to do this and to share with the people and your knowledge and to talk with you about this. So thank you very much for your time. I really do appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks so much. Great interview, man. You're good at this.
Thank you very much. And everybody who's watching and listening, I love y'all. Y'all are the best. I'm talking to you right there. So thank you very much for listening, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care now.